Hi everyone, I'm Mindie Kniss, and you are watching Kniss Connection. First off, I wanted to wish you a very happy Chinese New Year. As of today, February 14th, 2010, it is now the year of the tiger, so it should be a very powerful year coming up, and I'm looking forward to the great successes that will bring into your life and mine. What I thought I would talk about for this week's edition is how to consult the I Ching. I typically use the I Ching when I'm looking for an outside perspective, something that is beyond my own ego or outside of my own biases. And the I Ching typically gives great insight if I am open to understanding and contemplating what it has to say to me at that time. It's really easy to read something and say, this doesn't apply to me at all, or this doesn't have anything to do with the situation or the intention with which I threw the I Ching. But really, if you read it a second or third time, as I've learned myself, it has a lot of great insight, wisdom, and advice for us, and it's just us being open to receiving that information. So how do you do it? What you'll need are 3 coins, and you can use any type of coin as long as you can differentiate a heads and a tails on the coin. I just use pennies, and so it doesn't have to be any special magical kind of coin. Pennies, anything works just as well. You'll also need some sort of interpretation guide, and I use this book called The I Ching, or Book of Changes, by Brian Brown Walker. If you're interested in this particular book, you can find it through my website if you go to knisscoaching.com, and then under the resources tab there's a recommended books section, and this one is in the spirit category. But you can also probably find interpretation tools online or at the library. This one I like particularly because the translation is done really well, and it's really easy to follow the instructions in terms of what you're supposed to do. So with your 3 coins, what you're going to do is you're going to toss them 6 different times. And for each time you toss, heads equals 3 and tails equals 2. So every time you toss your coins, you're going to get the total number that the 3 coins comes up with. Heads being 3, tails is 2. And depending on whether or not you get an even or an odd number, if you get an odd, you're going to create a straight line, draw a straight line. Use some scratch paper or just anything that you have sitting around. So draw a straight line, and then even is going to be a broken line, and I'll show you what that looks like in a sec. Then, for each of the 6 times you throw, you're going to put another line on top. So you always build up. So you start with your first line, do your second throw, and then the second line goes above that, either the full straight line or the broken line. And then you continue up 6 times. What we're building with these lines is what's called a hexagram, and that actually becomes the diagram of what we will look at. So I'm going to pause here so I can throw my coin 6 times and then show you what it looks like, and then find out what the I Ching has to tell us. Okay, here's what I got. I tossed the coins 6 times, and so starting here at the bottom, I got a 6. So as you can see, I drew a broken line. The bottom was 6. And then the next one was 7. That's an odd number, so it's a straight line across. Let me make sure you can see this. And then I got an 8, so again, it's even, broken line, 7, 9, 7. So all odd numbers, straight, straight, straight. Okay, then what I do is I go to the book to look up, and the way that you look it up is by the top 3 lines, that's called the upper trigram, and then the bottom 3 lines, that's the lower trigram. The total 6 together make up the hexagram. So I'm going to look up the upper one and then the lower one and find out what we get. Okay, once you figure out what your original hexagram is according to whatever you're using to interpret it, if you have a 6, let me make sure you can see this. If you have a 6 or a 9, like we do here, those are called changing lines. So what you're going to do is you're going to actually switch them, just any 6s or 9s, to the opposite. So for instance, the 6 down here was a broken line, So in my new hexagram, my bottom or first line is a closed full line. And then the 7 and the 8 stay the same for this one. And then we go up, and that middle line, that's the 5th line, that was a 9 down here. So I switched it to the broken line up here. So now we have a new hexagram. What we do is, the first thing we read is the opening introductory paragraphs for this hexagram. Then we look at the lines. For this specific one, it's going to be lines 1 and lines 5. But for you, if you're doing this on your own, it's going to be whichever lines you had that were 6 or 9. Any of the what's called changing lines. We're going to read those sections in our translation guide. Then we're going to look at the introductory information for this new hexagram to give further insight and contemplation. So let me look all this up and we'll see what we get. Okay, here's what we got. For those of you who are interested, I'm going to be reading from hexagram 6 and then hexagram 38, and I'm just going to pick out a few of the highlights. This is what I found interesting. 6 is conflict. Whenever we allow ourselves to be drawn off balance, away from the strength of quiet integrity, we are in conflict. It matters not whether the confrontation is between competing values in one's own mind or with another person. It is the inner departure from clarity and equanimity that leaves us with feelings of despair and vulnerability. The only remedy is to disengage from the problem and return to quiet contemplation of what is correct. Conflict provokes strong feelings of doubt, fear, anxiety, and impatience to resolve the situation. If you act under the influence of these inferior emotions, you will severely complicate the misfortune. By following the prescription of the sage, and when they say sage, they're talking about God or your higher power or creative source, whatever you want to call it, and returning to a position of neutrality, acceptance, and detachment, you are able to meet opposing forces halfway, not recoiling in anger and condemnation, not pressing forward for some unnatural change in things, but waiting calmly in the center until the higher power provides the correct solution. The I Ching teaches us that all conflict is, in the end, inner conflict. And then switching over to opposition, very interesting that we would get conflict and opposition. So 38 says, misunderstanding truth creates opposition. There are many occasions in life which tempt us into negative thoughts. This is interesting since I talk about negative thoughts with my clients a lot. Anxiety about the future, mistrust of another person, bodily pain, fear of failure or even success. All of these tempt us into mistrusting life and believing that life is against us. When we fall into this trap, we are in opposition to the workings of the creative, and success becomes impossible. The simple truth is that every moment in every person's life contains the teaching he or she most needs at that time. How awesome is that? It is not always immediately apparent why a thing is happening because the sage is often inclined to work in a roundabout fashion. Nonetheless, whatever is happening now is what must happen. Our only task is to trust the process and allow the lesson to seep in. This hexagram comes as a signal that you are resisting life and preventing your own progress. Nonetheless, success is still possible, for every opposition carries within it the seeds of agreement. Cease resisting yourself, others, life, the sage. Let go of dark thoughts and aggressive actions. By returning to acceptance, neutrality, and devotion to the way of the sage, you dissolve the opposition within yourself and open the way for understanding and good fortune to arrive. So, that's really great advice for me, and I hope for you as well. Hope that's helpful. You can check out the I Ching whenever you would like, whenever you're looking for some insight or for some advice. It's really, really a great tool. So, this has been Kniss Connection. I am Mindie Kniss, and until next time, live your dream, rock your life.